Welcome to Your Financial Pathways. I'm Dan Youngs with HFG Financial Group, and today on this show we're going to be discussing retirement planning options. I have with me John Kuiper, financial planner with us. John, people have a lot of options for saving money for retirement, and you and I talked about this before we got going on this episode, that we think that people really need to be very conscious and aware of tax-deferred growth. And so that's really where we've decided we want to focus today. So really, John, people have two different options, really two different ideas. They can save money personally through tax-deferred vehicles, or many employers in the local community offer tax-deferred vehicles through work. IRAs are the most common personal retirement vehicle. What should people be looking for in IRAs?
Well, I think the first thing that we ought to discuss briefly is traditional IRAs. And then after that, talk about Roth IRAs, and then explain the difference between the two of them. So,
what's the maximum somebody can put into an IRA?
You can contribute $5,000 to a traditional IRA, and then if you happen to be over age 50, you can contribute an additional $1,000.
So a total of $6,000 per year.
$6,000 per year.
Over age 50.
Yep, and then for those of you who want to consider a Roth IRA, the limits are the same, $5,000, and then an additional $1,000 if you're over age 50.
Now, there are some phase-in and phase-out rules. So if you qualify for a retirement plan through your work, you may not be able to put as much into that traditional IRA as you could if you did not.
You can still contribute, but it may not be deductible on your taxes.
So you need to consult with your tax professional on that.
Yep, he would have that information and the income limits. So.
Yes. Okay.
So we probably ought to take a couple minutes and just explain the difference between traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. So traditional IRA, $5,000, additional $1,000, $6,000, and that would be deductible on your income tax. So why don't you just take away the Roth IRA and how that happens to be maybe a little bit different?
Well, and actually maybe let's put some numbers to it. Let's say that you make $50,000 a year and you put $5,000 into an IRA that's deductible. You only pay taxes though you were making $45,000 a year. A Roth IRA, on the other hand, you do not get to deduct it up front, but when you go to take the money out, all of the profit that it has made, if you do it after 59 and a half, comes out tax-free. But with your traditional IRA, you're going to pay tax on that. You kind of have to weigh the two out and talk with your financial planner as to what makes more sense for you. I'm kind of one that thinks some kind of balance between the two, having some money available that you can get totally tax-free versus getting some deduction today and reducing your income. But the biggest benefit to both of them is what? Tax-deferred growth. So you don't have to pay any tax on those.
And then if you're a younger client, a younger person, the Roth might make more sense. You've got many years of growth, and so free tax-deferred growth and then tax-free withdrawals. So it just makes sense to talk to your financial planner and see what makes sense for you.
Yeah, and that's the thing we have to emphasize is all of these have their own kind of unique little twist to them, and it's important to consult with a tax advisor, your financial advisor, to get the details as to how it works best for you. Moving from the individual world to your employer. Many, as I said earlier, local employers offer savings plans, and the term is used 401k, and I think many people are very familiar with that, have heard that term. How do they work?
The 401k is probably the most popular retirement plan offered by businesses. And in 2012, you can contribute up to $17,000 and $5,500 additional dollars if you happen to be over age 50. So you could contribute up to $22,500 per year. Of course, then that doesn't include your employer's match. And so you know as well as I do that we're always encouraging our clients to contribute as much as they can to get the company match.
And folks, I want you to hear that, because if your employer matches your 401k, you have to put in what they match. That's free money. By not contributing it, you're leaving that money on the table. And so that's something that we really emphasize to people. So write that one down. In a 401k too, there is the option of maybe making a portion of that a Roth, just to kind of confuse you folks a little bit more. But one of the boxes you can check, many 401ks offer that. Again, you cannot, then it's not deductible from your income, but when you go to take it out, it comes out tax-free. One of the other things about a Roth, or a 401k versus an IRA, is that you physically have to send the money to the IRA company, but your employer withholds that from your paycheck for the 401k. And I think that also offers some nice advantages if it kind of comes out of my paycheck before I get it.
Just makes it easier to contribute.
Yeah. Okay, John, so summing up what we've just talked about, we have really two different ideas. One that you handle personally, an IRA, individual retirement account that you make contributions to. That's tax deductible. And when you go to take the money out, you pay tax on all of that money that you take out. Or you have a Roth account that you cannot deduct now, but when you go to take it out after 59 and a half, it comes out tax-free. Then we have a retirement plan sponsored by your employer. The one that we've talked about is a 401k. Take money out of your paycheck each week. It goes into that plan before you pay taxes on it. It grows tax deferred. And at retirement, as you begin to take money out, you pay tax on that. But there's also, in many plans, the option to take and make part of that money a Roth. And you get the same benefit, but no upfront deduction, but you get to take money out tax-free. After the break, we'll be talking about a couple of other types of retirement plans. We'll also be discussing what happens and at what ages when you decide to start taking money out. So stay tuned after the break.
With so many questions, isn't it nice to know you can go to one place for the answers? HFG Financial Group has over 40 years combined experience helping singles and families in Southwest Michigan plan their financial future. Whether you're growing, graduating, chasing a lifelong dream, or retiring, stop by our office in Kalamazoo and meet one of our financial advisors today for a free consultation. We can help make you feel confident in your investments. HFG Financial Group, your beacon to a bright future.
Welcome back to Your Financial Pathways. I'm Dan Youngs with HFG Financial Group. With me today is financial advisor John Kuiper. John and I have been discussing individuals' retirement savings mechanisms in the first segment. Now we're going to flip it over. And John, what if I'm a small business owner? What options do I have?
Well, actually, you have a couple of options. And if you're self-employed without employees, you could have a Uni-K, which is a 401k specifically for a business owner. And you can do the same limits that we mentioned in the first segment, which are $17,000, $5,500 if you're over 50. And you can contribute the employer's match, and you could put away up to $50,000 a year as an individual business owner without employees. So that's something for self-employed to consider. And then the other thing, if you're a small business with maybe 10 or less employees, you might want to consider a simple IRA. Simple IRA is less cost to the employer to administer the plan, and employees can put $11,500 in the plan, and then an additional $2,500 if they're over age 50. So you have a Uni-K for a self-employed business owner, and then you have a simple IRA for the small business with probably 10 or less employees. And so two other options for a business owner to consider.
So if I'm a realtor and I just work for myself, that individual 401k makes an awful lot of sense. I'm just using that as an example. But as a business owner, I can provide a retirement vehicle to my employees that's not going to cost me a lot of money, but I'm really doing something to help them out, to give them a mechanism to save from their paycheck each week towards their retirement. And I really encourage local small business owners to consider this, something that we're quite knowledgeable on. You can call us, John or myself, and we can go through the options with you. One other thing I'll throw in here, John, is that there's a plan called a 403B. I'll tell you, we've thrown so many acronyms out there, you know, today, and I'm sure that it gets a little confusing for folks, but it's a plan that's set up for nonprofits, for churches. I know our area hospitals participate in the school systems, universities, and it's a plan similar to a 401k. But it is something, and if you are a small church and looking to maybe provide your staff, your pastor with a retirement plan, again, another thing, give us a call. We can help out with that to help set that up for you.
So the 403B has the same limits as the 401k, so the employee can contribute $17,000 and $5,500 if they're over age 50. And then it differs a little with nonprofits in terms of whether they offer match or don't offer a match like a company does. So,
and the big reason is that a company, it's a profit match, and nonprofits are not by their nature. That's why the difference.
Yeah.
Let's flip gears here for the rest of this segment, and let's talk about what happens when I do hit retirement. How do I get this money out? What happens to me? What are the consequences? Maybe give us an idea there.
Okay. Well, there's some ages we want to make you aware of, and the first one is 55. And so someone who has a qualified 401k plan, if you're retired by age 55, there are some ways that you can get access to your 401k and start taking a retirement income. So that's age 55. And then there's age 59 and a half. And pretty much all the retirement vehicles that we've talked about today, individual and business, you can start taking an income at age 59 and a half.
Without restriction.
Without restrictions and without penalty. And so 59 and a half is an important age to remember if you're thinking about retirement.
Okay.
Then there's another age, and that's 70 and a half, and why don't you tell us about 70 and a half?
70 and a half, the IRS says you got to start taking money out. And it's a small percentage, and they provide a table, and most retirement plan providers will tell you how much you have to begin to take out or what the minimum amount is that you have to. But that's the age in which you must begin to take money out. There are a few exceptions. If certain 401k plans, if you're still employed, the employer, if they've written that in their documents, you may not have to begin that. But again, it's very important that you start getting in that realm, that age, that you talk with your tax advisor or financial advisor and get the information specific to your plan. I think just the brief information that we've shared with you today can let you know that there's just an awful lot of things that are going on. So
There's a lot of information, there's a lot of pieces, and we just want to make sure people understand them and make sure they're on track for retirement.
So let me sum this whole past two segments up here, this one and the first one. Number one, you got to save tax deferred. You got to not pay tax on the growth of your money. It's going to compound better for you. You can do it as an individual. You can do it through your company if your company offers that kind of plan. You can do it through your churches and your nonprofits. But you need to consult with a professional, take a look at what all the options are, do some calculations, figure out how much you need. Thank you folks for joining us today. Our website has a lot of retirement calculators. There's information about retirement plans on there. We'd love to have you call and ask questions. Again, I understand that there's a lot going on here. If you're at that point where you may be heading to retirement or you may have an early retirement, it's so important that you speak with a financial advisor. Thank you, John, for joining us today. After the break, I will be continuing my interview with best-selling author, personal coach, motivational speaker, Tony Wroblewski. It's been just a great thrill and privilege to interview Tony. Been a lot of neat ideas, and we're going to continue that. Thank you.
With so many questions, isn't it nice to know you can go to one place for the answers? HFG Financial Group has over 40 years combined experience helping singles and families in Southwest Michigan plan their financial future. Whether you're growing, graduating, chasing a lifelong dream, or retiring, stop by our office in Kalamazoo and meet one of our financial advisors today for a free consultation. We can help make you feel confident in your investments. HFG Financial Group, your beacon to a bright future.
Welcome to Financial Pathways. I'm Dan Youngs. Really fortunate today to have best-selling author Tony Wroblewski with us. This is part one in a 5-part series that we're going to do with Tony on marketing promotion of small businesses and nonprofits. Tony is a homegrown boy, Spring Lake resident, graduate of Western Michigan University. Tony, welcome.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me on, Dan.
Latest book, Mind Capture. Tony, what do you mean by mind capture?
Well, good question, Dan. Really, I believe everyone's in the marketing game, whether they know it or not. I know we have a wide viewing audience here, and the mind capture is simply the ability to stand out, get attention, and win business in a crowded world. Through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, for example, I train a lot of nonprofit leaders, and they're coming around to the fact that, hey, we have to get our message out there, and it's very crowded. I argue that if you can't capture people in 1 to 2 seconds, you have a very difficult time. We're in Michigan. This is where we call home. Kalamazoo, Michigan, yes, is my birthplace. And we have seen a lot of economic challenges, more so in our state than many other states. So when I look at this, it's even more imperative, I believe, for everyone to understand, even if you're watching right now, well, I'm not in marketing. I think we all are. Okay, you look at, for example, people that are applying for jobs right now. If they actually get an interview, do you not think that when they're in front of that recruiter, they're trying to sell themselves? Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And if you're up against 400 or 500 other candidates, when you actually get that sacred time to interview, you've got to be on your best, what I call game face, to sell them or market of why they should choose you. So I really think in this sort of changed economy, there's a big awakening going on. All organizations saying we have to step up and be able to capture people.
Tony, we're kind of focusing on small businesses and nonprofits. You talk to a lot of them. Mm-hmm. And as you said, we're kind of in a difficult area here in Michigan, but there are small businesses that are succeeding and are successful. What are they doing differently than maybe some that are struggling?
Well, it's a very good question because a lot of times the media talks about how bad the economy is. And it's almost like this macabre game of how bad things are. However, there are many companies that are doing well, and here's what they're doing differently. Number one, they think differently as far as they're proactive. They don't wait around. They're not buying into all the fear. And essentially they're saying, look, how do we increase our service with our customers? How do we get more referrals? Something I'm sure we'll talk about in future segments. But they're saying, how do we build a better relationship with the customer? See, up to a few years ago, when the business economy was running along and credit was easy, you could almost do well without even really having to market because people were spending money much more aggressively and credit was easy. What happened the last 2 years, the rodeo changed and it got nasty. I'll give you an example where I come up with this. You look at Warren Buffett, someone you're well versed with, Donald Trump. You see them on television, CNBC, and even they're complaining about the last few years. So why I say what's happened the last 2 years is everyone's had to step up. Growing companies say, no, we have to build relationships now. We have to be able to save people time. We have to be able to bundle our products and services better. Some of you that are watching, nonprofit leaders, are going to say, look, we can't just beg people for money anymore. When we're a nonprofit executive director, we have to show value. We have to say, here's where the money's going on the front line. And if not, you're seeing consolidation in the nonprofit world. You're seeing smaller companies that if they don't know how to market and build relationships, they're being gobbled up. And a lot of companies that are growing are finding for pennies on the dollar, they can acquire other companies that weren't good marketers or shouldn't have been in the marketplace to begin with. So to me, it's fun. Most of my top clients are frankly having their best years ever. And they sometimes will bring me in and say, look, we want to keep momentum going. It's not as if I have the magic wand. I've got a few ideas, don't get me wrong. But they're already doing well. So it's fun to be around that. Mindset and relationships are critical and why they're growing.
You know, following right along with that line of thought, the companies that are not succeeding, what are they doing? What could they be doing differently that they aren't doing?
That's a different type of question.
Okay.
I'll give you a couple of thoughts on this. No, it's I like being positive, but you have to look at the pragmatic reality of Michigan and a lot of the global economy. What they do differently, and my assessment is getting the pulse of all sorts of industries, is there's sort of a retreat fear-based mode. I'll say this to your viewing audience, hope is not a marketing strategy. It's packaged and sold all over the dials, online, radio, television, print. Hope things change. No, you have to proactively think differently, have a strategy, hustle. We're all working harder. I'll give you something fascinating, and I'm going to go off point here so I can come back to your original question, but it seems as if right now successful companies are so super busy they can barely keep up. Or on the other end of the dial, that dovetails into what you're saying, people can't find any work or they're struggling. There seems to be in this economy no middle ground right now. Either companies are really flourishing or those that are really struggling. And it comes back to, again, a lot of the focus, what they're hearing and seeing around them is saying, well, our industry's bad. And they listen to all their competition wallowing and complaining. But at some point, there's one or two people that are the industry leaders in every business that are actually doing well. They do things very differently. Marketing is a major, major initiative. Whoever you're watching right now, I want to say this with strong conviction. The game is up. People will no longer tolerate inferior customer service. In the age of Google, I call it word of mouth. They'll click on and they'll find 10 other options to compete against you if they're not happy. So it presents a conundrum for all of us that are in sales and marketing that we have to keep raising our game. And some companies that, again, get mired in negative thought processes, they listen to all their competition, the negative media brings them down. They actually sell themselves in the fact that no one's doing well. And that's, to me, a myth.
Yeah. What do kids know or understand about sales that most of the rest of us don't?
Fascinating question. Being the proud father of 3 children that are 12, 11, and 8, kids have a couple things that all of us adults can learn from. Children have no barriers. They look at everything with what I call fresh eyes. And I'll give you a case study here that's worth noting. It's in the brand new book. It's a story, actually, I tell. It's called Braden's Question. And it was June of last year. It was a beautiful Michigan day. And I remember we're filming this right now in the wintertime. But June was nice. We go out Saturday morning for play a game of soccer in our front yard. And I remember it like yesterday. We're getting ready to walk out there, and I hear my wife yell, "Get Jake." Jake is running down the driveway. Now, Jake is one of our 3 chocolate Labrador retrievers. And I look, and sure enough, there's our dog running down the driveway in our yard. So Braden and I, my little 8-year-old son, go in hot pursuit. And we capture Jake at the edge of the driveway. We walk him back up to the garage. I let him in the house. And I turn around and look at my son. And here's what he says to me point blank. "Dad, how come Jake doesn't wear clothes like we humans do?" And I thought, what did you just say? He goes, "Well, how come the dog doesn't wear clothes like us humans?" And it floored me for a minute, Dan. And I thought, first inclination, ask your mother. I have no idea why he asked this. So we go outside in the front yard. We play soccer for about a half an hour, have a great time. We go back in the house. I say, "Braden, run along." And I go in my car and I grab a Post-it note and I wrote that question down. It's called Braden's Question. And here's why I share it with your audience. They get it. They look at everything with fresh eyes. The challenge is when we're adults, we're creatures of what? Habit. Okay? Many of our habits serve us well. But when it comes to business, if you become predictable, and I teach this all over the world, if you're too predictable, you become deadly with your marketing from the perspective of the marketplace tunes it out. And you look at children, number one, they have that curiosity factor. The second thing is they're persistent. Tell a child no. They're like, game's just begun, ding, ding. And they'll try every way conceivable to get what they want. You ever experienced this?
All the time.
Okay. A great example, because this is more of a local show here, is you take your children to Meijer's and you never let them go to the checkout lane, because they will have combat with you in aisle 7. And they'll say, I want this candy bar, I want this magazine. And you'll tell them no, and you'll try every form of parenting or parental escalation, and they'll still end up walking out with a candy bar. They don't give up easily. In this type of economy, the message is for the audience that's viewing is you're going to have to be tenacious. You're going to hear a lot of no's. You're going to hear people say, well, it's not this, and we're going to wait around. And if you believe in what you're marketing, if you're a nonprofit leader, you're a sales representative, if you're a director of a company or a VP, you're going to have to sell with conviction and passion, because people are they're a little bit more cautious these days. So children are persistent. And really, I guess the third point about kids that I think everyone can learn from is they ask great questions. Yeah. I go back to the story I told about Braden in our chocolate lab. They ask you questions that just floor you. And what I want people to think about in my trade as marketing and sales is your marketing message is making people stop and question. Okay, this is a show about finances and money and all that good stuff. But people are thinking about that constantly, and a lot of your folks that are out there in the market space say the same thing. Yeah. And the prospect has no clue how to differentiate, or they think, why should I even pay attention to that message? So again, fresh eyes, curiosity, they're very persistent, and they ask great questions.
Again, just really profound. I've heard you say this before, you and I've had this conversation, and it just struck me that fresh eyes, looking at businesses. I also am with business owners who are successful.
Correct.
And that's exactly what I see. And again, one of the things that jumps out at me is the ability not to take no.
Correct.
That's just the starting point, is the no. So thank you. Media, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a world that has just bombarded us with internet, Facebook, television, radio. Why is it important for small business owners and nonprofit people to be aware of the media?
Well, I think it's a great question at a larger level that most people don't realize. 85 to 90%, depending on what sources you go to, let's say 85% minimum, of most media is negative in nature. I'll tell your audience, one reason I agreed to come on your show is I like the fact that it's upbeat. There's a positive message here. And I get interviewed a lot. I've been on Fox Television, CNN, NPR, all the different spectrums. And what's very frustrating to me is how many opportunities I don't get because I don't sit there and say, hey, everything's so bad. The sky is falling. Let's just give up and pack it in. There's a lot of attitude right now that won't report good news that's occurring. And with those numbers being so high, 85% is negative in nature, is it any wonder if we're going to pull out of this economy? I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Tea Party, agnostic, whatever your political view is, if we don't start believing we can turn things around, we're going to have a tough road to go. And it's fascinating when I travel, for example, through airports. And I'll watch people maybe in Detroit Metro watching CNN, or maybe it's Fox. And you can tell they look either frustrated with what they're seeing, or they go, what in the heck is this garbage? So I don't mind saying my philosophy on the media, not that people in the media are all bad. I actually do a lot of work within the media. However, the overall editorial newsrooms are very much negative. They pull off the AP news wires, and it's all homogenized. So when you find a good news story, it's usually at 11:23 on the local news, and it's 60 seconds. But the other 22 minutes was all about the latest car crash, the tragedy, the fool that did something crazy up on campus. I just don't understand why we talk about all the negativity.
I want to thank Tony Wroblewski again for his great business building ideas. I also want to thank John Kuiper for joining us today. We'll see you on the next episode of Your Financial Pathways.